Okay, I'm going to teach you how to make this square booty, and what it is you're making a square and you're sewing it up in such a way that you have a booty, okay? And I'm going to teach you a basic equation so that you know what you're doing, okay? You'll need to do a swatch, all right? And you don't need to stretch it and figure out the stretch and that kind of thing. You just want to do a swatch. Figure out how many rows per inch and how many stitches per inch, but your focus needs to be your stitches per inch, all right? And we're going to be doing a garter stitch, but it's actually a really simple pattern, and I'm going to be using an X-Loom. I'm going to be using my large X-Loom, but if you have a foot that's bigger than a 9.5-inch length, you're going to want to go with the extra large X-Loom, and I'm using the 1/2-inch gauge. If you are wanting to use the Flexi Loom, when you start getting into this project, you're going to need 2 packages, all right? And if not 3, depending on your foot size. All right, so you'll either need 2 or 3 packages, but I'm using the extra large, that large 1/2-inch gauge X-Loom. But again, I'm going to give you the equation so that you know exactly how to do this on any gauge, any loom, with any size, okay? And that's the great news about a formula. All right. So, what I have here is stitches per inch times the foot length equals A. All right. And A times 4 is the total number of stitches. Okay. So let's say I'm doing a 5/8-inch gauge, and I do 3 times 9.5, and it gets 28.5. I'm going to round that up to 30. And I'm going to do 30 times 4, which is 120. Okay. So I have 3 stitches per inch. But I'm doing a 1/2-inch gauge, and that changes it up a little. Okay. My 1/2-inch gauge is basically 4 stitches per inch, which changes it up. And so I end up using 130 stitches, all right? But if you've got the 5/8-inch gauge, you're going to want 120 stitches if you have a 9.5 foot length. Honestly, this will work. The 120 or the 130, if you're doing the 1/2-inch gauge, will work for a smaller foot. It'll probably work from anywhere from, say, a 8.5 foot length to a 9.5 foot length. It has that kind of stretch to it. So if you have that shorter foot length, you can just go ahead and have an adult size foot length. You can just go ahead, and if you have the 5/8-inch gauge, use the 120 pegs. But I'm going to be using 130 on this, okay? And I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. All right. So again, take your stitches per inch. Do you a swatch. Take your stitches per inch, find out what your stitches per inch is. All right, and if you need that, go into my sock playlist and I explain how to do a swatch check, okay? But I also explain how to do the stretch and that kind of thing, and we're not worrying about that in this particular pattern. Then you're going to take your foot length, okay? So stitches per inch times your foot length, which is 9.5 for me. All right, and that equals your A, which to me is each section, because I'm going to be dividing it into 4, is the sections, which may make it easier for you to be able to keep up with. But if you need to know your total stitches, so you need to know how many lengths, if you're going to use a Flexi Loom, because this is either an X-Loom or a Flexi Loom. And I will put the link below on the conversion, on how to do a conversion between these looms and the Flexi Looms, okay? I just find that these are easier to do decreases and increases on if I'm only doing a forward direction. If I'm doing weird stuff in weird places, then I will pick up my Flexi Looms and work from there. But again, that's a really, really simple formula, and it works. I figured that's what was going to be needed, is just to figure out the foot length and then work from there. I would suggest the fatter yarn of a gauge that you're using. So a bulky yarn for the 1/2 inch gauge would be suggested. If you're using the 5/8 inch gauge, you'll probably want to use a 6. Just a suggestion. You can try it with a smaller yarn, but I don't think you'll get the results that you want, okay? So let's get started. Now that I've given you that formula, as I said, I'm going to be using 130 pegs when I calculated the other. So for me, if you have the large 1/2 inch gauge, excellent, you're gonna max these out as far as you can max them. And you're even gonna go back 1 peg past the wedges. So I'm gonna take them all the way out. All right. And I am going to suggest something I don't normally do. I normally start on that peg there, and it helps me understand where my starting and ending point is. But because I don't want my tail to be in a strange place, I'm going to be starting it a little unusual. But you're going to max these things out as far as you can max them. Now if you're doing a smaller foot, you won't have to do that as much as I am. Okay. Now you can do the starting peg like I have here, or you can do other. Here we go. Now I am using Puzzles by Premier Yarns, and it's a bulky yarn. All right. So my suggestion is to use a chain cast on. Reason being is it makes it easier to see how you're going to sew it. So do my slip stitch. Now I would not normally do this, but I want it on the corner. I don't want a partial, so I want it on the corner. So what you're going to do, pardon the messy desk, is you're going to take and go 1 past the wedge, right? And you're going to chain cast on. This will not affect the gauging much at all, and you're only doing this for 2 rows, and then you start decreasing pretty immediately, because every other row you're decreasing. So you knit your first row, and then you purl your second row, and then typically what you're going to do is start decreasing on your knit row. So you do a wedge decrease on your knit rows, and then you do a purl row. Then you do a wedge decrease on your knit rows. And that's how this works. You might could do an extra row in there if you wanted to, but I think that would change up, and you would end up needing to do, say, a purled 2 together on the wedge pegs, and that might be proven to be a pain in the rear end, so I wouldn't suggest it. Alright, I'm trying to show you what it looks like to do 1 past when you get to the wedges, and then I'm going to let you go in and do it on your own. And if you're used to a chain cast on, this really isn't bad. And if you're wanting to learn some more advanced techniques and still do a simple pattern, this is a good choice. Alright, this is just a good choice. It's not as difficult as it looks. It looks all fancy, but it really is not that bad. Okay. So here I am. Right, get my camera or focus. I'm going to go 1 past. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to tighten it. Then I'm going to go around my wedge pegs, and I'm going to pull it around the wedge pegs and pull it. Okay. Alright. This is kind of difficult. This is a big one. Okay. Then you're going to go one past over here. Okay. So you're going to go one past. And you'd be surprised that adding those 8 stitches makes a huge difference. So go ahead and pause the video and chain cast on all 130 stitches. Now if you're doing the 5/8 inch gauge, it's 120. Alright. So there you have it. Okay. So you're going to come all the way around. You're going to go past here. So you're going to go here. You're going to come around here, and you're going to go past here, and past here, and you should be ending up right here. All right. And then I always like to put my extra loop right there. So this loop here, when I get my way around, I always like to put it right here. All right. So go ahead and pause the video, get your chain cast on done. And then we'll go in there and I will explain the simple 2-row technique to working this down. And it is really simple. Not going to take any time, okay? And the more complicated spot is folding it, and it's not even that difficult there. Alright, this is actually a really simple pattern, not difficult. Okay, so pause the video, chain cast on all your bags. Alright, and then we will move on from there. Okay, I have done my cast on, and as I said, I put my loop that I was pulling around right there, so that all I have to do is pull it over. At this point, you're just going to go around and knit, okay? So you're going to knit a row, and then you're going to purl a row, all right? So at this point, you're just going to go ahead and knit your way around as row 1, and then the next row will be the beginning of a 2-row repeat, and that's where you purl a row and then you start decreasing. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and knit a complete row, purl a complete row. Okay, so you're gonna knit your way around just like I've been doing. All right, and then so pause video and get that much done, and then I will go ahead and actually show you the purled row. Okay, so I have finished my row of knit. The next thing I want to do is a row of purl. So you'll want to go in and do a complete row of purl, and then we'll be ready to be starting a decrease on our knit rows. Okay, so this is the beginning of a 2-row repeat. Is the purl row. Okay, so keep that in mind. This is row 1 of a 2-row repeat. All right, now when you do the decrease on the Flexi Loom, it's a little different, but not much. You're doing your decrease onto 1 peg so that it makes it a little easier, okay? And you just want to go to the link below to see how an easy conversion works with the X Loom and the Flexi Loom. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and purl your way around, and we'll come back and I'll show you what the next step is. Okay, so we have just completed our purled row and we are ready to decrease now. Here's the general reason why I don't like to do the decrease in, but because I don't want my tail and weirdness in the middle of the foot, I chose to do it at the end. So what you want to do is you don't have to move the wedges this time. You just pick them stitches up and you just move them over. And your working yarn, you just move in front of that peg. Okay, so now you're just going to basically knit the row, and those will be the last two that you knit. Then you purl a row, and then after that point you should start having to do a wedge decrease, which I'll show how to do that. So this one's easy, you just move this down. You ain't gotta move your wedges yet, that's the next decrease. So every other row is literally going to be a decrease. Okay, and what you'll find with the way you did that is that you'll be starting with the next available peg. Okay. Alright, so at this point, you're just going to knit your way around, and when you get to those wedge pegs, you're going to knit the two stitches together. Alright. And then you're going to purl a row, just like we did. Okay, that's the 2-row repeat. Alright, so once you complete this row, you want to purl a row. You don't have to do anything special, just purl it. Alright, and then I'll show you how to start actually pulling those wedges down to do the wedge decrease. So again, this is easier than you might think it is. It's just decreasing every other row, and you create a square. So here on these wedge pegs, I'll kind of show that. Knit the two together, just like that. Alright, so go ahead and knit your way around and purl your way around. And then when we come back, we'll be ready to show you how to do the actual move the wedges decreasing, okay? Pause the video and get that much done. Okay, so I have completed my knit round and my purl round, and I'm ready to do a decrease round. And this is how the decreases are going to look. So once I show you this, it's your job to continue this patterning until you have no more decreasing you can do. Alright, and you're creating a square. So what you're going to do is you're going to loosen that, and you're going to move it down to the next slot, as you can see. Now, we're going to tighten that up. Okay. Make sure that our working yarn is on this side of this stitch, since this is kind of our starting and ending point. You're going to pick up those straggler stitches and you're going to move them over like that. Okay, that is an actual wedge decrease. And you're going to repeat that on all of them, and then you're just going to knit your way around. I'll show you that again. You're going to loosen it, and I always like to do it the decrease before I start, and it kind of helps to make sure you don't forget to decrease. Okay, so then you're going to lift that up, move it over, and lift this up and move it over. And I always like to pull that down. Okay, so that is your wedge decreasing and how you do that. So what the object is at this point is you do that on all four. Okay, and then you knit your way around.
and then you purl your way around, and then you decrease again on all four, and you continue this all the way down until you don't have any more decreases you can do, and then we'll come back and go from there. This is actually a really simple pattern to knit up, and it's really simple to go in and fold it. And if you're wanting to learn how to do decreasing in the middle of garments like this, the X Loom I find is easy, but if you cannot afford an X Loom, you can try a Flexi Loom, and there's a link below showing you how to go in and convert this pile of square up and doing this kind of thing and decreasing in a link below showing you how to convert. Really easy. Okay, you don't have to worry about it. That's easy to keep up with. Okay, so just know if you're going to do a Flexi Loom version in either of the packages, you will need to buy 2 packages. Even if you're doing the large gauge or the small gauge, you'll need to buy 2 packages, maybe even 3. Depending on your calculations, you have to calculate it up and see what you need to do. But I would say probably 2 packages is what you need on both of them. So if you're doing the 5/8 inch gauge, which you need 120 pegs in order to do anywhere from a 8 probably to a 9 in this size range. Okay, so keep that in mind. But again, keep up with the basic calculation, okay? So go ahead and pause the video, wedge decrease all of them down, just like I showed you, all 4 of them, knit your way around, and then purl your way around, and then wedge decrease again on all 4, knit your way around, and then purl your way around. Keep doing this until you have no more decreases you can do, and that creates a square. Okay, once you're done and you are down here, I will show you how to try and finish up. And that isn't as difficult as you think either. So this is actually an easy pattern if you're wanting to learn to do the decreasing in the middle of a garment. Okay, so as you can see, we have decreased down, and I've also decreased down a little bit more. I've decreased it down. I'm going to knit around, and then I'm going to draw string off, which should get you 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So you should be down to 16 stitches. I've decreased down to that. I'm going to knit my way around, and then I'm going to draw a string bind off. Okay, so already kind of cut me a little tail, but I'm just going to knit my way around, and you could try to purl your way around one more time. Okay, but it's not necessary. You're just trying to get it down so that it closes up nicely. And then it's simply sewing it up. So this is really just that easy of a pattern to learn on here. And your wedges are probably going to move a little bit more. They're on the very tip of things. Alright. Last 2. And then you're going to just draw a string, bind up. Okay, so toss it over, pull it through. Toss it over, pull it through. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and draw string bind off, and we should be ready to show you how to fold this to sew it up. Okay, and that's where the trick is, folding it up to sewing it up. But also, if you like this, you can still make a whole bunch of squares like this and make a blanket if you'd like. This is just a good basic square on the X-Loom to make a number of projects with. Okay, and you can make small ones on the 1/4 inch gauge if you're wanting to make, say, little animals out of squares and that kind of thing. So this is just certainly a way of doing a granny square. You can add stitch patterning to it if you'd like. This is kind of a versatile basic pattern, but it's mostly focused on making booties. Okay, so pause the video and get that much done, and have you a needle and some yarn ready to start sewing up your booty. Okay, as you can see, I've drawn a string off that and I've pulled it. And if you're one who wants, you can block it so it lays flatter. But that is your square. So that's how simple it is to make a square, actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this off, and I'm going to use this tail to also sew up. I'm going to show you how I do this so you don't have an area that has a tail going on. Okay, so I'm going to pull this very, very tight and send it through these loops. I'm going to send it through round and round a couple of times, and what that does is it actually goes about closing it off to where it doesn't come undone. And I find that you can cut it fairly short and you don't have to worry about a tail here, so you don't have to worry about that. I usually do this a couple of times. Sending it round and round. And then you should be able to start pulling it and it not move, which is your goal. Okay. So, as you can see, I'm pulling it and it's not moving. That's it. Alrighty. Now, you're wanting to make your booty. You want to know how to do it. Fold it as a triangle, like this, okay? And you want to find your halfway point, or just below your halfway point, okay? So somewhere, if you want, you can fold it in half, and there's your halfway point, or you can go slightly below your halfway point to give yourself more room to put your foot in there. You're going to sew it down the square and sew it to the tip. Now, if you sew it to the tip, you will have a little lift, like a little elf's shoe. What I'm going to show you how to do is how to get it to where it's smooth like this on the bottom. When you put it on, you don't see that tip. So what you'll want to do is go ahead and pause the video and sew down and sew to about here. So you have that much left, or you get really closer to a point, somewhere in here. And then what we'll do is we'll go in and I'll show you how to close off that toe so you don't have the pointed tip. If you want the pointed tip, you can just sew it to the end. Okay, but if you don't, that's fine. Okay, when you sew it halfway, sew it down, sew it up, you'll find that you've created a booty. Okay, so sew halfway, so from like the halfway point down and over, and then almost to the tip, and come back to the video and I'll show you how to finish up that toe. Okay, as you can see, I've got that much left. Okay, and what I want to do is just send the needle through each of those chains all the way around, and then I'm going to gather it up. Okay, and what that's going to do is going to create a curve. Okay, and no, you don't feel it, because it's going to go right in that spot in between your toes and the ball of your foot. Okay. Okay, we've reached the last one, and we're just going to draw a string that together. Okay. What you probably want to try to do is you want to draw a string this together while also making sure that this doesn't get too tight, because you will need the length. Okay, now in order to complete that, then what you want to do is you want to do a little star pattern to finish closing off what little hole is left. And this gives you a rounder toe so that you don't have a point at the tip. Okay. If you want the point at the tip, just sew it all the way to the toe. Okay. Pull that up. Okay. And then I'm just going to pull that through and knot it off. And there you have it. Now you can start with this end if you want. You don't have to finish with it. And just okay. I'm going to flip it right side out. Here's your drawstring area, and then you simply fold that down, and your foot goes right in there. And that is how you make a square booty. Now you can take the square pattern idea and you can go in and make a whole bunch of squares to make an animal if you want. You can go ahead and make squares to make a blanket. You can do this square pattern, and it's really easy on the X-Loom to make a whole bunch of stuff. But there is how you make square booties.